I learned how to survive. I learned how to succeed. And then God taught me how to become whole. Hey, family, it's your girl, Shamieka Charlay. I know it's been a long time. So before I jump into my story, I want to tell you a little bit of why I tell it. I'm not telling it to you so you can leave here saying, whoa, she survived a lot. It's because if all you see is me, then I have totally missed the point. I tell my story because somewhere inside of it, I hope that you see you. Your details may look completely different than mine, but I've learned that grown women can build very different lives while still being driven by some of the same wounds. And sometimes the little girl who lives inside of all of us, who's learned how to survive, is making decisions for the grown woman everyone admires. I know this. Why? Because that little girl was running my entire life until I surrendered and God made me whole. So we got to go back to the origin. My story began with abandonment and rejection. I was born to a mother who was struggling with addiction. And then I entered into foster care, where eventually I got adopted around 5 years old. Around that same time, molestation began to enter into my story. Child on child, sexual abuse, just all the things that people don't normally want to talk about. I didn't have the words for what was happening. I didn't understand trauma or abuse. So I did what a lot of little girls do when they don't feel safe enough to tell somebody what's happening. I learned how to hold secrets, family secrets, other people's secrets. Are you holding secrets? Yeah, a lot of us do. As I got older, I learned something. If I couldn't feel chosen in one place, I could go looking to feel chosen somewhere else. So I started looking for love and acceptance through boys and relationships, starting in junior high. By the time I was in high school, I was experiencing domestic violence from one of my boyfriends I was with. We had gotten pregnant when I was 17 years old. Right after, I had an abortion. There was another layer beneath that decision, though, that took me many, many years to understand because I stuffed that. I only started talking about the abortion a couple years ago. I became very good at protecting the image of other people. I knew how to look like the girl who had it all together, even when my life was telling a completely different story. So today, I have language for that. Back then, I didn't. I just knew that there was a version of Shamieka that people expected to see. So I was determined to keep that girl standing. What I learned was somewhere along the way, it felt safer to be admired than to be fully known. Shortly after I turned 18, during that period of time, my parents were having financial difficulties that I had no idea they were experiencing. And so my mom forced me, as we call it, familiar trafficked me into a relationship with a gentleman that was almost 50 years old when I had just turned 18. And so I want to pause right there because it even took me years to even understand that season or to give language to that time. Can I say this? When you've spent your entire childhood surviving things that should never have happened to you, dysfunction doesn't always announce itself as dysfunction. Sometimes it simply feels familiar. You may not recognize that something isn't normal because normal is whatever you've learned to survive. So eventually, back to the stories. I had the courage to leave that gentleman after 10 years. And I thought leaving that means I was free. Now I was going to pick who I wanted to be with, date who I wanted to date with and be with. But nobody taught me this. You can leave one person and still take the pain with you. So I took it with me into the next relationship, into motherhood, into the way I saw myself and the way that I loved in relationships. And eventually I took that same pain into my success. Here's where my story gets a bit interesting, guys, because I didn't stay visibly broken. I became capable. I learned how to be responsible, independent, and strong. I learned how to walk into a situation, read the room, understand what people needed, and how to make things happen. And people rewarded me for it. So I didn't look at those qualities and wonder whether pain was hiding underneath them or not. No, I simply thought, this is just who I am. And some of that is, and some of it was who I was. But what I couldn't see yet was the pain that had become very good at disguising itself. I learned something since then. Wounds we don't deal with don't simply disappear. They learn how to disguise themselves. Pain can put on a beautiful outfit, build a successful life, take care of everybody else, and make sure that nobody sees that she's hurting. That was me for over 30 years. Matter of fact, 40 years. I became a very successful entrepreneur, built a thriving business in Orange County, California. I became good at what I did. My clients respected me. They loved me. They trusted me. I was the woman the people talked to, the woman people confided in, the woman who could encourage everybody else. But from the outside, there was plenty evidence that said, Shamieka girl, you successful. You made it. But the little girl underneath that success still carried rejection and abandonment. She still knew how to hide, perform, and to cope, and began using alcohol to do exactly that. Eventually, it wasn't simply just casually drinking. I had become a full-blown alcoholic. Do you hear me? That was the contradiction of my life. I was falling apart without falling behind. And because I was still functioning, nobody thought to ask what was happening beneath. And for a long time, neither did I. But can I tell you, eventually survival caught up with me. It did. In January of 22, decades of unsolved trauma, unhealed relationship, addiction, physical problems, illnesses, emotional pain had accumulated. My marriage was falling completely apart. My drinking was completely out of control. And the suicidal thoughts that I had experienced on and off my entire life were no longer thoughts. One day, I was completely intoxicated and overwhelmed by pain. I stepped onto the ledge of my high-rise apartment, and I intended to end my life. This time, not even the love for my daughter could stop me. There I was, the woman who had made things happen, the woman other people had come to for strength, and had reached a place that I could no longer carry by myself. But before I attempted to jump, I screamed out to God. I said, God, if you don't stop this pain, I swear to God, I'm a jump. And y'all, that's exactly where he met me at. He was waiting for me. He answered me. I did not die that day. Hello, I am here to tell the story. But when I look back now, I don't believe that God suddenly appeared on the ledge. I know that for a fact. I believe he had been pursuing me the whole time, my entire life. I was the one who had finally responded. And when that happened afterwards, it was not an overnight transformation. Let me tell you, God began putting pieces in place. My biological family on my father's side that I had never known showed up through ancestry. So that gave me the strength then to start trauma therapy and start the inner healing, start the inner child healing. I began facing what I had spent decades avoiding. And most importantly, I began developing something I had never truly done before. Not simply going to church, not doing religion, but I had developed an intimate relationship with Jesus. Little by little, God began reaching the places that accomplishments never could. And then in August of 23, he held up a mirror. By that August, I thought I had done a lot of healing because now we were almost a year and a half into my healing journey. I thought I had forgiven the 4 people who had broken my heart. So because I still was feeling something was like empty, something was missing, somebody suggested that I go on a water fast. So I went on my first 3-day water fast almost 3 years ago when this is going to be uploaded. And I wanted to ask God about my purpose. Isn't that just like an achiever? Oh, God. Okay, God, what's next? What am I supposed to do? What's the assignment? I could never turn it off. And instead of showing me my future, you know what my Abba showed me? He showed me this, my heart. He began dealing with the bitterness and unforgiveness. And I was arguing with God like, God, are you for real? I have forgiven them. Well, apparently we had 2 definitions of forgiveness. My God, have mercy on me. One of the people he had caused me to see differently was my adopted mom. She was my greatest pain point. This is the part that I really want you guys to pull in a seat closer to, because for years, when I thought about my adopted mom, I had plenty evidence for my pain. She had lied to me. She had betrayed me. She had used me. She hurt me. Those things did happen. Healing did not require me to pretend that they didn't. God never asked me to call wrong right. When he began showing me something my pain hadn't made very difficult to see, that there was more to her story. Some of what she gave me was connected to what had been handed to her. That didn't excuse the harm, but compassion began to enter places where bitterness had lived. And then God showed me something that completely changed the way I saw her. He said, Shamieka, I know she did all those things, but she did what I asked her to do, and that was to plant Jesus in you. She took me to church. She put the seed of Jesus inside that little girl. Was she perfect? Absolutely not. Were there contradictions and real harm? Yes, but God essentially showed me this. Shamieka, she gave you me. And I said, my God, when I got that revelation, suddenly I could see something I had not been able to see before. Years later, when I was standing on that ledge, when the successful business couldn't save me, when the alcohol couldn't numb me no more, and when the people in my life could not feel what was empty, I knew who to call. And where had that seed been planted? That part. Through the same woman I had spent years seeing primarily through what she had done wrong. And for the first time, I could hold two truths. My mother caused real harm, and my mother gave me something extraordinarily valuable. God didn't have to rewrite my history for me to heal from it. He helped me see the whole story instead of only seeing my life through that wound. That changed something in me. In that fast, that broke something off of me. Because for years, the womb had been telling the story, and God began showing me the womb doesn't get to be the only narrator. And so I'm going to ask you, can I hold up a mirror for you for a second? Is there a person, a season, or even a part of yourself that you've only been able to see through what happened to you? Healing doesn't require you to deny the harm, but the womb doesn't have to tell the whole story anymore. That's what God was teaching me in this fast. Y'all, on that third day of the fast, God had given me the title of my first book, Letters of Gratitude and Forgiveness, Overcoming Abandonment and Rejection. He told me exactly how to structure it, how to write it, all the things. But then he began to show me that the story I had spent years hiding would now become a part of how I would help other people heal. And during that fast, something happened that I had spent my whole life looking for. For the first time, I felt emotionally held. I felt loved by my Abba Father. He hugged me, and that hug that I felt 3 years ago, I still feel today. I began experiencing an internal wholeness that achievement, relationships, and success had never been able to give me. So when God began asking me to lay things down, that's what gave me the courage to say yes to him. And so I tell y'all, about 3 months later, he told me to retire from my very successful salon to follow him full time. Let me be clear, y'all. I was not financially prepared to retire. I did not have a beautiful business exit strategy, nor a clear picture of what would come next. I didn't know that I would become a certified transformational coach and that I would be called to serve women. I just knew I had experienced Abba, my God, my Father, and I didn't want to go back to life without him. So I obeyed. December 23rd of 2023, I serviced my final clients. Those hands had spent years building a business, serving women, and creating a life I was very proud of. And at the end of that day, I closed the doors without knowing exactly what obedience would cost me or where it would lead me. I thought I was following God straight into purpose. What I didn't know was that he was about to take me through another level of healing. And baby, that I still had work to do. Oh, Lord, I was so arrogant still. I had a long way to go. But God began to bring me home, you guys. There were still layers that I couldn't see yet. Ways that I coped, ways that I performed, protected myself, and still searched for fulfillment outside of myself. Beliefs formed many experiences I had survived decades earlier. Over the next couple years, through therapy, sobriety, fasting, praying, solitude, forgiveness, hard conversations, correction, community, and an increasingly intimate relationship with God, he kept holding up that mirror, not to shame me, but to free me. And eventually, I saw the pattern connecting different parts of my story. The little girl had survived. The grown woman had succeeded. But neither survival nor success had made me whole. And that's essentially what I have been chasing for my entire life. And that's essentially what I have been searching for, that feeling of wholeness. That is when I finally understood something. Success cannot heal what success did not create. Did y'all hear me? I'm going to say that again because that revelation changed my entire life. Success cannot heal what success did not create. But success wasn't bad. My business wasn't bad. My ambition wasn't bad. The problem was that I had spent several years, the majority of my life, asking external things to answer external questions. Like, was I enough? Was I worthy? Was I chosen? Did I matter? No achievement could ever answer those questions permanently because achievement did not create them. God was not asking me to become less successful. He was teaching me how to stop using success as evidence that I was worthy of unconditional love. His love, the way he had saw me before he had even created me. And as he continued healing me and walking me through wholeness, I began recognizing the woman I was called to serve. The beautiful thing is, I had known her for years. She had been sitting in my salon chair for over 15 years. I started seeing that woman everywhere. She came into my salon, accomplished, capable, responsible. CEO, leaders, pastors. She was the woman everybody depended on. She sat in my chair to have her hair corrected, fixed, whatever she was coming in for, but somewhere between the consultation and the finished styling, the conversation would shift. The woman everybody admired would begin telling me what was happening underneath. She would tell me what she didn't feel safe saying anywhere else. And I would listen. I was a human diary. That's what my clients called me. I would hear the thing beneath the thing. I didn't have the language for it then. But what I realized, God was already making the chair a safe space. Women trusted me with the parts of their stories they usually kept hidden. And he would give me wisdom to encourage them. Looking back, I could see clearly. God had been developing the gift before I even understood the assignment. My God. He wastes nothing, you guys. Now I understand my role. And it wasn't to stand over successful women and tell them how they should live. They already knew how to work hard. They didn't need no more pressure from me. They needed somewhere safe enough to tell their truth. A lot of them would leave the salon checking out saying, well, I done got my hair done. I had a therapy session. I done sipped a cocktail. Mickey, that's what they called me. You're all in one, girl. I don't need to go see my therapist this month. A lot of them said that. I still crack up right now. And sometimes they needed somebody just to lovingly ask them, can I hold up a mirror? I was holding up a mirror for them to see their hair. But really, God was preparing me to hold up a mirror so they could see the patterns that they didn't know that was there. Because the woman I'm called to serve is not broken. But what I learned was there may be a heartbroken little girl inside of her whose conclusions are still influencing the grown woman's decision. She may have learned that the achievement earned attention, that needing people wasn't safe, and that hiding was the price of being accepted. And now she had become masterful at being admired while still longing to be fully known. She keeps moving the finish line because she still believes that the next level will finally change how she feels on the inside. The next achievement promised fulfillment, but fulfillment never arrived. That's the woman I recognize. Why? Because I was her. But here's the beautiful part, y'all. God did not destroy that strong woman. God didn't destroy that woman. He healed the little girl inside of me. He showed me how they could finally become one whole woman. I didn't have to stop being ambitious, building, leading, influencing. I didn't have to become less powerful to become healed. I needed to stop asking my accomplishments to prove my worth. I needed to stop asking people to fill the places only God could reach. I needed to stop allowing survival to decide who Shamieka was going to be. I needed to love the little girl I had spent years trying to hide and outrun. Y'all, can I tell you, that's coming home. That's coming home to yourself. And the fruit has not only shown up in me, it has shown up in my relationships. My daughter and I have experienced deep healing in our mother-daughter relationship. I had to acknowledge the places where my own brokenness affected how I even mothered her. And because God healed something in me, I became capable of giving her something that I didn't have available to give her before. And today, y'all, my daughter has her own relationship with Jesus, walking in her purpose, building a kingdom business. Y'all, and on top of that, God is restoring my marriage, restoring it back to the man that had my heart since I was 15 years old. That's a whole nother testimony that I got a link in here somewhere else. And so I have watched healing move outward from my heart now into my family. That is when I realized healing is never only personal. It becomes relational. And eventually, it becomes generational. When a woman comes home to herself, she loves differently. She parents, leads, builds, serves differently, impacts differently. And perhaps one of the greatest gifts a woman could give her children isn't perfection. It's her own healing. So why do I tell you all this? Not for you to admire me at all. So please don't leave my story thinking, whoa, Shamieka, she's so strong. She survived a lot. I spent my whole life being admired. I would rather my story make you curious about your own. So let me hold up the mirror. One last time, what happened to the little girl inside of you? What did she learn because of it? Did she learn that she had to earn love, hide her struggle, or prove her worth? And could something she learned back then still be quietly influence the woman that you are today? Don't shame her. She learned how to keep you going, how to keep you safe. That's what little Shamieka did for me. She may be part of the reason you're sitting where you are today, but she shouldn't have to keep running your life just because she once helped you survive it. Maybe it's time to turn that around, to find her, to walk her out of captivity, because this is what I know today, you guys. Lean in, real important. I spent years trying to become enough only to discover I already was. That's what my Abba showed me. The work God had did in me wasn't about creating some brand new Shamieka. It was about healing what hurt, removing what survival had taught me to carry, and reconnecting me with the woman he created all along. That's why I call this work the coming home process. And it's rooted in my favorite scripture that I've loved my entire life. 3 John 1 verses 2. This is what it says. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou may prosper and be in good health, and that thy soul prospereth. I knew what it was like for my outer life to prosper. God had to teach me what it meant for my soul to prosper too. Wholeness was always the goal. So if you see yourself anywhere in my story, I want to leave you with this. Your pain does not get the final word of who you become. Your past doesn't have to be erased for it to be redeemed. And you don't have to spend the rest of your life becoming more and more impressive while the little girl inside of you still wondering whether she's enough. Go back, get that little girl, not so she can run your life anymore, so she can finally stop running and rest. You can hold her, tell the truth about what happened to her, get her the help she needs. Let God show you the parts of the story that pain may have kept you from seeing, and give that little girl permission to become part of one whole, healed woman. Because sometimes the greatest journey of our lives isn't becoming somebody new. It's finally coming home to who you were created to be. I spent years trying to become enough only to discover I already was. And if God could take the story I once wanted to hide and turn it into a story that now I'm willing to tell the world, travel across nations to help other women walk out of captivity, I can't wait to see what he does with yours. So welcome home. Some of you might say, well, Shamieka, what does that mean? That means that it's time to start doing the work.